This is a special presentation for Night Ride FM.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome everyone here. My name is Dennis G, and I have a very special guest with me tonight. I have Derek B, also known as Northern Lights. How you doing tonight?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me, Dennis. I really appreciate it. We've been able to talk a little bit over the past few months, and just it'll be cool to finally get this going in person.
Yeah, dig her feet in the sand and start talking some synthwave. And I tell you what, your new album is just fantastic. I love the sound. I love the direction you're moving it into. And I just find your music very fascinating. I find you a very interesting artist that just kind of thinks out of the box a little bit more than some of your traditional synthwave. And it can kind of move into different genres too, which is very interesting as well. How long have you been a musician?
Well, first, I appreciate that. That was really kind of you to say, and just we'll get into that. Just it's just all about the art. But first time I picked up a guitar, I was about 7 years old. That could be a whole long story. Um, So I was about 7 years old. Started with guitar. I learned a few chords from a few teachers, and then growing up, about the age of 12, like I knew your basic chords. I could play
Your E, your
just
C's.
chord. Yeah, I could play chords. But then when I was about 12, I was finally just like, I want to learn lead guitar. I had a friend that played guitars that was like a year older than me, and he knew how to play lead guitar, and he could just shred.
Oh,
And I was just like, I want to do that. So I just had some people teach me some skills, and just so from then on, I played guitars, and then I got into keys when I was about 19 or 20. So then I was just more like into the keys and guitar, and then I started to discover all these just different synth chords, and just through different people that listened to more 80s influence stuff, which that started about age 22, 23. That's where I just got more into the production side, and just got more and more to I want to learn how to play bass, and then synth bass. That was a long-winded answer. Told you to get there, man. But yeah, since about 9 years old is whenever I'd say I'd started
nice,
like
nice.
really pursuing it.
Yeah, I love long-winded answers. And in fact, if you know me and if you've ever heard me talk on the radio, I could, it's like, what is that joke? Somebody asks for the time, you tell them your life story.
Yeah,
That's
that's pretty much what I'm gonna do tonight. So I
nice.
apologize in advance.
Nice. Well, we'll be meandering and I'm sure some good stuff will come out, some fun details about your music. And I kind of started off the same way too. I mean, I'm not a musician as much anymore, but I do know music. I love music. I think I played trombone, and
Mhm.
that was my main instrument. By the way, if anyone out there needs trombone for their
Um,
synthwave song,
that's one thing, man. I cannot play sax personally. It's just like woodwinds are the hardest. Violins as well. I mean, just those are some of the two hardest instruments, and I respect anybody that plays any of those instruments because they're not easy.
no, they're definitely pretty tricky. But yeah, I think trombone. I actually started off with the trombone because I wanted to play an instrument, but I'm like, man, all them notes and I actually looked at the saxophone because all the cool kids were playing saxophone, and I'm like, man, I can't do that. I want something with no keys at all. So I was like, a trombone doesn't have any of those. And I'm like, this is great. And then I realized like it's all the same crap. You're
Right.
just manipulating the instrument a little bit differently.
Yeah.
I mean, I know some people that can just wail on the saxophone, and man, it's
Mhm.
amazing. Um,
Same here. I go to this place in East Nashville, which is more like the rock kind of soul side of it. and I had this friend playing on stage, and these two people got on. This is just a side note. Sorry, these two people got on stage, and they were playing sax, and they both started harmonizing each other, and they were just. I get mesmerized by stuff like that.
It's incredible. Another love of my life is jazz. I mean, I just, I can't get enough of jazz. It's really good. Speaking of Nashville, this is another opportunity for me to jump all over the place because I want to dig into this pretty deep. Nashville, what an amazing place to do music, but what an interesting place to bring synthwave. Now, I mean, Nashville is like, I guess, well known as being the country capital of the world. Now, how did you feel when you first walked into Nashville and walked into a lot of these places and was like, yeah, guess what? I'm going to be rocking out some synthwave. I know you do some other projects too, that which we'll get to as well, but what did it feel like to kind of bring that new type of sound
I mean, I
into?
get exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
I was told I had some great mentors. I was living in LA, and I just had some cool mentors that said, you got to go over and try Nashville. I'm like, what? No, I'm not really country music. I mean, I've I've learned to embrace country music by living there, but I went and visited I think 3 times and just I didn't want to do it until I finally met 3 or 4 people. So basically you have Nashville, which will always be a country music town. And downtown Nashville is where it's like where people go. That's what it'll always be. It's all country music, honky tonks, which so many great musicians play there. But there's East Nashville. And East Nashville is what I was shown that is now the rock and the soul. And I've even found people playing on synths. Actually, if you've heard of the Alphabet Zero, I guess he lives in Nashville.
Yeah.
He's kind of upcoming in this synthwave scene. And we have actually never met in person, but I know that we're kind of within the same community. So it was a lot different. I didn't want to do it at first, but I'm glad I did because I found that there's just this community really trying to change and show a different side of that town.
I think that's really amazing. And I think it's really cool because that's the cool thing about synthwave. You can kind of bring it into an area, and thank goodness for places like the internet, which I know it gets a bad rap sometimes, but you do get connected with people and find other people
Surely.
that are just in your area and say, hey, let's all connect. Let's try to put some shows together. I know a couple of places. I know Nitro Wave TC, I believe, is kind of a community that is in Minnesota, and they're trying to put together their own musicians and their own little sub community where they can all support each other, put on little concerts and everything like that. I find it really fascinating that a lot of these places in these cities are really starting to gel with a lot of these type of really cool things that, it's kind of picking up speed, which is really neat.
Yeah, and that's what's amazing in the Nashville community is because as big of a music town it is, the group I've found some communities that have worked for me and some that have not worked for me. And the community that I've found that have really stuck true, people that are just there and looking out for you and just want you to succeed. It's not so much competition. It's just we're all artists here. It's really only a small group of probably 40 or 50 people in that town. And it just shows you how small that town can actually be. But it's just amazing that it's only about, I'd say 40 or 50 people that are really trying to make this change, but they're making big waves. And that was another reason I went to Nashville, was because you don't find a lot of that community in Los Angeles, unfortunately. But they're good to embrace you for sure, as long as you find the right people.
Of course. So is that where you came from, Los Angeles, and then I guess migrated to Nashville?
Yeah, I did. I lived there for about 5 years. And I had a great time there, but it was just you got to go kind of where the music leads you, right? That was cliche.
No, it's the truth though. It really is. You got to kind of find, man, I was just about to say, you got to find your sound. And that's another cliche. Follow your soul wherever it may lead you.
Your soul.
But no, I definitely get what you're saying. And I think that's possibly what I actually hear in your music. Now, when I listen to it, the first thing I think of is I want to be on the beach. I want to be on the boardwalk. I want to have a surfboard under my feet. I just want to, let the water splash in my hair, and I don't know how to surf, but my God, I want to get on one and just ride it all around the town, Well,
Yeah. I mean, that's cool. It's just mostly that when I went back to this, I really was not in the best place in life. I mean, like things were all right, but it was just at a point where I just wanted something different. And so I started this anonymously, and it really was just all about going back to being a kid. And, I spent all my summers on the beach. And so maybe that's just part of it, of just for that nostalgia. Like I want those kind of visions that people see is more just like the good times, more cliches. There you go.
no, well, hey, man, we're in this business of synthwave. We're all about cliches, really. But no, I think that really just rings true, especially when you hear the music. It really lends itself to that type of aesthetic. You're very breezy, and it's a different kind of sound. It's not really like you're fast pumping, driving down the road in a sports car. It's more of like a chill beach party, hanging out with your friends, walking down the boardwalk, and
Mhm.
just chilling with your peeps. The first song that I heard that really kind of just sucked me in and I was just sold was I actually heard you on Andy Lass's show, and he played Malibu.
Oh,
I find all my stuff on Andy's show. It's great.
he's awesome.
He's very prolific too. He'll play anybody, and just really always good stuff that I find. And I listened to Malibu, and then the second song that I heard, it was right at the very beginning, which was Without You. Now, the interesting thing about that really kind of turned me on to your sound was, first of all, it had no lyrics. And usually I go for stuff that has lyrics. And I think that's what kind of brought me to your music as well, was when I heard Malibu. But this had no lyrics. It was just a sound that I've never heard before. It was full of sounds. It was full of like samples, and it was very breezy and free flowing, which just immediately just brought me to that one little point where I was a little kid and I was walking down the boardwalk and, looking at girls on the boardwalk. And I'm like, damn.
I mean, I really appreciate that because I haven't. It's a lot of people, especially when you're in Nashville, nobody talks about their music, and then everybody's like, "Oh yeah, I'm listening to your new album," and nobody's listening to their new. You know what I mean? It's just cool to like hear from somebody that's actually listening,
Yeah.
like to describe, what they hear in it. Because sometimes I just shut it out. Once you put it out into the world, it's not yours anymore. So, like a mentor in Nashville told me that they're like, it's yours while you're writing it. And they're like, once you press upload, it's not yours anymore. And that made a lot of sense because it's like it's all going to be what other people portray at this point.
I think that's one of the things that I really like about the synthwave sound is all the imagery that it can bring. I mean, obviously, you could put a bunch of GIFs and stuff on Twitter and all that, and all the race cars and all that, but it really doesn't matter. I could actually just remove all the imagery because all the imagery is inside of my own head and it brings it out. And that's what really turns me on about really just music in general. The fact that you can do that, it's kind of like magic, which is just amazing.
That's very interesting too, because I have a few friends that are great filmmakers in Nashville, and they're coming to me with these music video ideas, and I'm like, well, in that town, people want you to have a music video. You got to have something, but I also like the idea of what you said, that if you don't have somebody giving you a visual, you make your own visual, and so forth.
Yeah, absolutely. So now, obviously, you do this great kind of sound, and synthwave, for most of the artists that I talk to, it just feels like it's kind of like been always in them as far as something kind of waiting to be released to the world, like where you have a sound in your head and either you're putting it out now or it's something that later down the road you end up putting out and it turns into this thing called synthwave. When was that one defining moment, or was there ever a defining moment where you said, wow, this thing seems to be falling into this category, which let me just get it right out there. Synthwave to me is a wide umbrella. So
See, it's funny that you say that, because whenever I started, I don't even think we even called it synthwave. This was like 5.5 years ago, 6 years ago, I think. I mean, like now it is. Maybe they did call it synthwave. I guess it was whenever I did Night Drive, You Stole My Heart, in 1984. I did all three of those, I think, within 3 days.
wow.
And it was just coming out. But the thing is, I don't think, like, I've tried so hard to do that again. And it's like you get something magical and then you try to recreate it. But at that point, I was just playing sounds and just was just doing it. And this was where I just wanted an imagination, and I was just obsessed with Aurora Borealis. Yeah, those three were definitely the first songs. Don't really like talking about like plays and likes and all of that. I mean, I know that we have to feed off of that, but at the point where that started, where there was one day I logged in and it was getting more and more feedback. That's where I was like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe it's something I could do. And so that whole first album was just for fun, just for me. And I guess at that point, I didn't really know a lot about the community. I think maybe I'd heard like Dana Jean and Time Cop 1983. I heard him. And I think there were only like 5 or 6 different acts that I had heard. And I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with that. But,
No, I think you definitely it definitely answered the question. And yeah, it's always interesting. I always like to find out where people are and how they got into this little Venn diagram that we have,
like at the time, I didn't even know there was. I didn't know there was a term that was called that. And so I started looking in, and I'm like, oh, this is like an actual genre now.
Right.
So I don't know.
Oh, these people are crazy. What are they doing? And I tell you what, the synthwave community is probably one of the most passionate communities that I think I've really stumbled upon. I mean, I've known like, fish heads, and I've known people that are into Grateful Dead, and then I met synthwave fans, and I'm just like, my God.
Maybe that's something that I really like about it, because it seems like most of the people in the synth scene are into rock and like heavy rock as well, So it's not as much this old like just pop 80s. It's seen as like these people are out there rocking now with what they're doing.
It's a wide umbrella, and yeah, especially like your dark synth and the stuff that is more rock based. Like I would not really consider groups, or let's say artists like Pilot, I wouldn't consider them like 100% synth wave, because they can kind of cross over into just a good rock sound. And, I use the label, but in all honesty, I really don't like labels as much, because I seem to gravitate towards the artists that are just kind of really doing their own thing and not really trying to sound like anybody else, which actually is the thing that just amazes me about your music and your sound production. Now, I just got to dig a little bit into some of the things that you do that I find very interesting. Now, for one thing, your vocals. Now, most of the vocals that I hear in synthwave and everything like that, it's like very sitting on top or above the track. Your vocals just seem to have so many layers. It's like you're painting a canvas and you're taking some paints and you're just making like kind of like a mosaic of sound of like your vocal sounds, which I find really fascinating. And a lot of it too is a little bit like more on the distorted side. Some of it is like almost barely audible, which I find really interesting to use as a technique. And obviously you do this stuff on purpose because that's the sound you're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. It's cool that somebody else hears that. Is that honestly, like you said, it's like painting a picture. I don't know where I'm going with this whenever I'm doing it. In this last album, I just wanted to just do it and don't look back. Whether it did made sense or didn't make sense. I just wanted to take more time because I feel like so many albums I've just done it and released it, and I was just like, have fun with this one. You also have to find that fine line of not overproducing it as well.
Right, right. Is it too much? Did I put too many layers on it?
True.
And I guess you probably, maybe even more than the average producer, you probably go through a lot of back and forth with a lot of the stuff you put out. Like I know even with the newest album that you put out, I know that you kind of did like a soft launch on Bandcamp and you're like, well, I'm still kind of EQing it, just putting those like final touches. And especially the new sound with Midnight, you kind of really went all in with a lot of layers, a lot of tape hiss. What was your main idea behind that?
I honestly don't know. Like I just was going with what I just wanted to do. That's just I really wanted to get back to that, and like I said, I don't think anything will ever be Dreamers Part 1,
Mm.
but that was just made that was something I just wanted to do. I had no direction, and that's what I wanted to do because I just felt like I was trying too hard on a lot of the other albums.
Mhm.
But yeah,
It's almost like you wanted to have more of that like early demo quality, that
mhm,
old, just I found this tape and this tape contains magic. And just to kind of
yeah,
add a little bit of that and dirty it up a little bit. And I
yeah,
totally get that. And I think that's another thing that really kind of pulls me into your sound is the fact that it does have that crackle. There's something about
mhm,
a record crackle that just gives it a little bit more magic to it. I don't know what it
yeah.
is.
And it's just neat when somebody else hears that, and I believe the artists do hear that as well, but it can sometimes be hard to explain to people. When you're pitching this or giving this to somebody for a commercial, you got to kind of be like, "Oh, it's like this on purpose, I promise." So that's the only like problem you can kind of run in, but that's where I got to a point where I was like, if I'm going to write something for commercial, I'll do it there. I'll do it, with great stereo quality and whatever they want. But with this, yeah, I wanted it to just sound as crunchy as possible.
And you add a lot of interesting effects to it. I hear, especially on the new album, you got tape warble. I even noticed like you put in the old tape hiss to it, and
Mhm.
it's incredible.
Um, I can't believe somebody's actually heard it because I don't even know what song it is. But at the end, just that tape hiss,
Yeah.
I didn't even know it did it until the master came out, and I was like, okay. I mean, because I'd been talking to it's a whole thing that actually have a few friends in Nashville that we're about to start a project that really involves that. Like have you ever like played a cassette tape and you can kind of like you've recorded over it so many times that you can kind of hear both songs that you've recorded,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
like techniques like that we're about to start. So maybe it was part of that, kind of like a intro to what I'm wanting to just experiment with.
Yeah, my favorite is when I used to play tapes and it would actually start to play side B in reverse over top
Mhm.
of side A. It's like the magnet gets a little bit shifted to the left or to the right, and you could just start hearing the other side of the tape. I used to love all that stuff. I used to hate it, but I find now that when you get into the wonderfully crystal clear production of modern music, you kind of miss that a little bit. You miss that
Mhm.
that dirty sound.
Yeah, I was listening to XM radio, the 70s on 7 channel the other day, and I could kind of just hear that hiss in the quality, and you're going, it still sounds great in vinyl, but there's something that people are nostalgic for, just that kind of just imperfection.
Yeah. I'm going to tell a really weird story now, which I think kind of tunes me in and probably makes sense in the context when I was in art school, because I do art stuff. I do arts, you know.
Mhm.
I'm not a great drawer or a great painter, or even a great musician, but I've done things all throughout my life. I used to really get into art, and we did this whole pottery. I was never a pottery thing, but I went through this phase. I guess it was like maybe a senior in high school, where it was more of a philosophical thing, where I was actually making these mugs, and instead of making like a nice pretty mug, I took all these like jagged edges, and I really just kind of
Mhm.
smashed this mug, and I really like poked holes in it. And in fact, I even put like a little hole like right in the middle of the mug,
Yeah,
where it completely invalidates it as a mug. You can't even use it because it's got a big ass hole in it. But I
but it makes complete sense with it being art, because I almost got real out there with it. That I'm like, but you did anything except they were trying to get, except what they were trying to get you to do.
That was my rebellious, I didn't get in fights. I just put holes in mugs. But it was cool. And I had this phase. I would just take my hair and I would get out of the shower and I would just mess it all up. And I just put a little bit of hairspray in, and I'm like, good. I guess that was me as a rebel. But I kind of liked that whole perfection in imperfection, that really kind of, when I hear your stuff, that I think that just, again, it just zaps me back to that time in high school where I really like that, because that's how the world works, with social media and music production, and even this very interview, which I'm probably going to go back and edit. The magical thing for the most part is just allowing that imperfection to just kind of shine through. In the same vein too, you want to kind of make things pretty in the end. So it's a
Yeah,
tough battle.
yeah,
You kind
yeah.
of go back and forth a lot.
Yeah, I fight for just wanting to just do art, and then I get into these situations where people are like, "Can you make it?" Like, I'm in a situation right now where they're like, "Can you make it less dream pop?" And I'm like, "I can. I don't want to,
Right.
but
Can you make
you
it
know."
normal, please?
That's pretty much what they told me. That just in a nice way.
Just make it
They were just
normal.
like, yeah, he this person, great guy, but he was like, "I'm pushing for this indie rock, whatever." He was like, "But they will not take it." And then so I send him something else, and I'm like, "Okay, this isn't, dream pop." And I send him the track, and he's like, "Can you send me something less dream pop?" And I'm like, "That was acoustic guitar. Like, where am I at this point?" But
Oh, it's amazing though. I mean, and you're constantly fighting between what people want and what you want to do. And kudos to you, man, for putting out the sound that you want to put out. And that's what I think artists should do more often.
mhm.
I think it's great.
I appreciate that. And anytime somebody tells me that, that means a lot. But it's just at this point where, and I talked to this friend that is a great songwriter. She's doing great. And she was like, there's really no such thing as making it anymore. Just everybody's doing their thing. Everybody's, got their art and their great music. And it's just great that we can all contribute at this point.
Yeah, totally. I find it very interesting too that you do your own thing, but you also have very segmented projects going on that some people may or may not even know. But I know because, I went down the rabbit hole that you produce a lot of different sounds, and I really love all the stuff that you do. Now, the one project that you do is Jet Ryan, and that was another thing that really just kind of blew my mind when I heard it. And that's not exactly synthwave, and I think that's the thing. Like, your stuff transcends, but it's still got that same sound, but it's a little bit more of a singer-songwriter type of deal.
Yeah, that was more, I mean, I appreciate that. That was more of a just, I have so many songs sitting on my vault. And so I've just kind of been combining these things that I've written. And so within that, like the Jet Ryan, that one little EP is just, I just combined like 10 songs or so that I've had that I thought could have similar sounds going all across the
Mhm.
board. And yeah, so it was just that was just a sense of that Northern Lights has more warped vocals, and I wanted those to just be more open vocals because I don't really like singing. I got to be
Right.
honest with you, but it was just kind of they were demos at first to try to sell to other artists, and I was finally at a point where I was just like, screw it, I'm just gonna release them. But
I'm glad you
you know,
did because because I love it. Your singing is a lot more pronounced, less ducked under the vocals, more predominant, and less
mhm,
fuzz and distortion. And it really just kind of puts it into a different realm. Now, I know you also have another one, Cassette Riot, which was, I guess, kind of a one off project, right?
yeah, that was more like synthwave demos that I wasn't using. So yeah, it's more. That's why a lot of people would be like, "Oh, sounds like Northern Lights." And I'm like, I think it's because it's mostly stuff that I just was like, "Oh, I'm gonna put it on some side project." Where it's not so much
Oh,
connected
neat.
to the same thing. Yeah, but yeah, it's been neat that you told me that about the more predominant. Because I had somebody tell me just a few days ago that they were like, "I like Northern Lights, but I wish you had one that was all collaborations." And I think that that's something that I would do next, where it's just every single track is a collaboration with another vocalist.
Oh, for sure. That would definitely go over.
Yeah,
Now, that's the thing. Like, we've actually covered the stuff that you have that's instrumental. We have the stuff that you have with your vocals. Now, you don't do a lot of distortion when you bring on guest vocals. And that's what I find really interesting as well, because when you bring in other vocalists,
more the feedback I've gotten that people want other vocals, and I think it's that there's so many better vocalists than I, and I'm aware of that. I'm like, I'm a music composer and arranger. I'm not trying to be a lead singer of a band, but it's like you meet all these people with these great vocalists that you can really make them pop and make them feature. And that's a lot of fun because like you said, it adds a lot more to the song instead of sounding like the same song over and over. I also think that that just also has to do with the people that I have featured on my songs. They'll tell you exactly what they want. So if you have too much delay, if you have too much reverb, they'll tell you. And I like that. I like when people tell me. I try to make sure to get it to what they want as
yeah,
well.
that makes sense. I remember one of the singers that stands out is Stephanie.
Yeah, Stephanie.
Very good. I'm terrible with names.
Oh, it's cool. She actually has a song she sings at her shows. It's like she does the STE and has people sing it back. That and then she jokes. She'll be like, "So now you know my name is Stephanie, not Stephanie." So
I love
yeah,
it. She's got some great vocals. I want to say I'm gonna really butcher this one. Danny,
Danny Martin.
he's the one that does Malibu, right?
Yeah, yeah, he has great vocals as well. They're both based out of Nashville, and they're kind of a part of that little community we were talking about earlier, of just great people trying to bring something different to that town.
Yeah, totally. So, do you think on your next one, is that what you're shooting for? Maybe a little bit more collaboration with different singers, different artists? Because I know you pretty much do everything other than, well, you even do the singing. You do the guitar, you do the drums. Is it real drums? Is it drum
Um,
machines? Is it kind of a mix?
can I plead the fifth?
You sure can.
Um, I want to keep imagination out there.
Yeah, keep the
Um,
magic going.
but yeah, as far as like something else, honestly, I'm not sure because I actually have another project that I'm working on with a few friends, so I'm gonna may kind of focus on that. But I'm not gonna like stop doing what I'm doing with Northern Lights. It's just for another album that's way in the future. But
Well, nice.
um,
I mean, you just put out Midnight, so I mean,
yeah, yeah, I know. But I'm always just like, what am I gonna do next? What am I gonna do next? Which sometimes I just need to live in the moment. But I had released a Christmas EP like 3 or 4 years ago. Somebody has it somewhere. I don't know. I'm thinking I may come back and try to do that this year. Maybe re-release it or get some features or something.
a
Um,
Northern Lights Christmas EP. That markets itself right there. You just got to say Northern Lights Christmas EP.
yeah, I'll have to send you some of it though, because somebody has it somewhere. I released it like the Christmas after Dreamers, which is like 5 years ago.
Oh, nice.
So it's been a long, it's been a
Now,
bit.
now let's jump to the name because I know I've actually know a little bit about the story. That you're just very fascinated with the aurora borealis. That's another word I
Mhm.
can't say. My God, all these hard R's I can't say.
It's cool.
But yeah, one day I will definitely go and see the Northern
Mhm.
Lights. Now, I guess you were there at one point. Did you
No,
actually see it
no,
in no?
not at all. And that's the thing is that I'm trying to get to Iceland, if anybody wants to donate. No, that's one thing I've actually never seen, but I've always just had a fascination with, like, space and anything about to nerd out about space, but anything with space and science. I used to hate it as a kid. I don't know why, but then whenever I got a little older, it's just like things that are happening that we don't really know why they happen. And I don't know what I'm trying to explain, but
It's
um,
definitely it's a cosmic thing where I actually know a few artists that are very, very into the spirituality of things and, without getting too deep and philosophical, but yeah, they firmly believe that all the things in the world are happening because
mhm,
of something else. And there's
right,
definitely
right.
there's a big wheel that has a lot of cogs to it. you know?
Yeah, yeah, and I truly I do believe that portion of it, and it's kind of just wanting to get out there and know the unknown and the actual northern lights out in Iceland. It's just kind of like I know that it's chemicals and atoms and stuff all combining together at the end of the day, but you're kind of like, you know, what if it's something else, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for
But
sure. It is fascinating. I'm surprised we don't have a Northern Lights Space Wave album coming
mhm,
out because, man,
mhm.
you would nail it. I know you would.
Giving me ideas here.
I'm putting you on the track right now. Right right this point here. I'm planting the seed in the back of your head. You're like, Space
Mhm.
Wave.
It's definitely something to get into, and that's the thing too. Is just this genre has expanded so much that I think that it's hard for me to catch up. I commented on somebody on SoundCloud. I mean, I would even have to go back to my page. I can't right now, but I like accidentally heard his song, and I was like, "Whoa, this is amazing!" But it's just like it's expanding so quickly. It's just hard to keep up with who's who, and which is great. I mean, that's amazing for the community.
Yeah,
But
it's blowing up.
but yeah, it's just becoming just a great like now there's like Space Wave, and I'm like, now I need to know who all these people are.
Believe me, this is my gig. This is my thing is knowing who's putting out what. And I can't keep up with it. I mean, I look to my buddy Neon Fox. I'm like, my God, thank God you're here because I mean, between the two of us, we can barely keep up with the scene
Hmm.
because there's
Hmm.
so many different directions. And
Right.
the cool thing about this genre of music, it's not even a genre of music. I said over maybe the summer, I just kind of put it out there that, in my heart of hearts, I think it's less of a genre, it's more of a movement, really. A genre is a specific type of sound, it's a specific type of vibe you're going for.
Hmm.
And if I try to categorize that, it would be all over the place. So to me,
Right.
it's a movement, it's a community of people that are like minded, that seem to enjoy the same type of things. They enjoy, the nostalgia, they enjoy the aesthetic
Exactly. Yeah.
and the cool things that have happened, and they try to more or less recycle that and make new cool things
Hmm.
out of the past. And I think that's, synthwave to me is like the greatest form of recycling that you can do, that you're remanufacturing memories. And I think that's really
Hmm.
cool how you can just rebuild and
Hmm.
create new imagery and new memories
Hmm.
through music. I think it's great.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to talk a little bit about Michael Oakley, which I find is a very interesting person to work with. How did you get connected with him, and how did you guys? I guess you guys traded remixes together
Hmm.
in a way.
Yeah. So, gosh, I met him probably like 2 years ago, and I think he was asking me to make a remix of one of his songs, and I really wanted to do it because I'd heard his stuff, but I was just at a point where I was so busy. I was working on this. I think it was when I was working on this show called Nashville that used to be on TV here, and I really wanted to work with him, but I just kind of ran out of time. Of he had some sort of deadline. So when his last album came out, he reached out to me before the album even released and asked me if I'd do a remix, and I was just like, okay, yeah, I'm glad you messaged back. I'm gonna finally make time to do this. So yeah, he just we just got together with Control, and I think it worked out great. I mean, I had thoroughly enjoyed, kind of that. I call it the UK, the Euro aspect that we were able to bring to it. It was kind of that old school kind of feel with that remix, and he's a lot of fun to work with.
Yeah, he is. He's a super cool guy, really nice guy. And in fact, that one remix, I believe, is the one that we're using on our charity album. So I would love to really kind of dig in right now to your most recent album, Midnight. Now, you kind of went along the same lines as your previous album, but a little less collaboration. It seems like you did all the vocals yourself, if I'm right. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's no samples in those, other than just some synths.
You kind of doubled down on a lot of the warble and the hiss, which I think is really cool. Now, how long did it take you to put that album together? Is this something you've been kind of like honing over a year or so? Like, because I know you said that you spent a lot of time on it.
Yeah, I did. I think it's more so like, okay, so usually like I'll record an album in March and then try to release it in mid-April or something like that. Just get it out there quick. And so by spending a lot of time of it, I actually wrote it all like throughout the month of April of this year. But then I spent the entire summer just going over it, editing stuff. So not a full year, but I guess what, like 4 or 5 months, just more than I usually do, pretty much.
Okay. Okay. Now, again, like it seems like you really spent a lot of time. Now, how hard was it to get that right balance of, for lack of a better term, making it sound like crap, but you know what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Making it sound like it has that retro, old, wonderfully crispy sound to it. Like it seems like you probably went a little bit forward and then you pulled it back. Like how many times did you kind of have to go back and forth with like the mix down? That had to have been crazy for you.
It was more of just I would just listen back to it and just kind of whatever I wanted at the time. And so then there are different days where you think you want this or you think you want this, and yeah, so it was more of just kind of whenever I listened back to it, just how I liked it. So yeah, it was just kind of there'd be days I listened back to it, I didn't like it like that, and then there'd be days I listened back and like, okay, I like that.
You're like, what am I doing? And you just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
remove all the filters.
yeah, pretty much. But yeah, it was more just like do I enjoy listening to it? Yeah, fine. Will everybody? Probably not. But you know.
But you got to make music for yourself, man. That's the cool thing about it. So you're definitely going to be hopefully coming to the East Coast one of these days, right?
Yeah, for sure. I'd heard about what's the fest that's in Rhode Island. I've been trying to get to that.
Yeah, that's Neon Retrofest, and that would be a
Yeah.
really good one, actually. It's a 3-day festival. It's actually really cool,
Mhm.
and it's amazing. Just everyone just kind of comes from all these different directions, and I find it just amazing that this community is so tight that they'll just do that. People will come over from Serbia, and they'll come over from halfway across the globe. It's one of them things that I find just so wonderful about this
Yeah.
community. And you do play a little bit live too. I guess you do a couple different shows around town,
Mhm.
um, guitar wise, I guess.
Oh yeah, right now in Nashville, I'm playing because I'm trying to go on tour with Northern Lights, but it's more just finding. I've found the band members, but it's now I got to get the budget for these band members because we're all still working artists, even though it's all about to me just the art. And I've wanted to get up to places like Rhode Island. I've wanted to meet some friends up in Toronto, and at the end of the day, how you're telling me all these people come from other countries just to these festivals. It's just that makes money worth nothing, and it's just it can give you valuable memories. Just being a part of a community that we all kind of understand each other and what the music's about.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, man, I'm really excited. I'm really excited about the new album. And if you're listening to the sound of my voice, go out and buy or listen, check it out at least Midnight by Northern Lights. Again, I thank you very much for being my guest and definitely speaking with me. It was definitely a pleasure. I've been excited to do this for a long time.
Yeah, thanks, Dennis. Thanks for having me on, and I'll come back anytime. Hang out.
Oh, sounds great. And we'll definitely be listening.